This is Music Off the Record. I'm Dr. Ken Owen with Pierce College. We're talking about the music on Northwest Sinfonietta's next concert, which is called Bach Double Concerto. If you watched the other video, we talked a little bit about Stravinsky. Now we're going to talk about the specific piece that we're going to be playing called Dumbarton Oaks. It's a concerto. Now, if you remember, if you watched that other video, we talked about Stravinsky while still in France, took a couple of tours to the United States as part of his international touring. While in Washington, D.C., he met a couple named Robert and Mildred Bliss. Now, they commissioned him to write a concerto for their 30th wedding anniversary. So as part of that and getting to know them, Stravinsky is able to visit the Bliss home. And there it is. It's titled, the home is called the Dumbarton Oaks Estate. And as you can see, that's the title of our concerto. So there's the home, as you can see, a beautiful manor. And it's especially known for its gardens, the gorgeous, beautiful gardens. I have several pictures here, and there's lots more if you're into botanical gardens and those sorts of things. Definitely a place worth visiting if you get the chance. There's some more of them. Just absolutely beautiful grounds, beautiful home. And of course, Stravinsky is inspired by it, thinks it's wonderful. But even despite that, he doesn't title it Dumbarton Oaks. It's just Concerto in E flat. It's Mildred Bliss who requests that Stravinsky title the piece after their estate and call it Dumbarton Oaks Concerto. And so they do. Stravinsky actually misses the premiere. He doesn't get to conduct it. He's very ill at the time and in the hospital, and so he misses the premiere of the concerto. But 10 years later, they make the first recording of the concerto, and they decide to do it in the Dumbarton Oaks estate, right there in the home, and Stravinsky does conduct that one. Just coincidentally, that home is now part of Harvard. It belongs to Harvard and is a special collections and research library for them. So on to our concerto. The Dumbarton Oaks Concerto, there are some who have supposed that maybe Stravinsky tried to somehow parallel the structure with something to do with the grounds or things. In actuality, it's just based on an old concerto form. Now, this was typical for Stravinsky at the time. Often it's referred to as neoclassical, the style that he was using, where he would take old structures from the classical and Baroque, like Mozart and Bach, and use those structures, but with his own new 20th century harmonic language. And this concerto in particular, as you can see up here, there's some similarities to one of Bach's concertos, the Third Brandenburg Concerto. Both Bach's Third Brandenburg and the Dumbarton Oaks have violins scored for 3 parts rather than the typical 2, and violas also scored for 3 parts. There's also a very similar melodic motive that is used, that Stravinsky uses to what Bach has done. And someone asked Stravinsky, did you consciously quote Bach's Brandenburg Concerto? To which Stravinsky coyly just replied, I don't know. I'm guessing it was either a look like this, I don't know, or maybe he was a little more upset, I don't know. Either way, he was not giving anything away. So let's look. This is a clever video that's going to play the beginning of the Bach Brandenburg Concerto. And then it's going to go right into Stravinsky's Dumbarton Oaks, and you can kind of listen for the similarities. Now, looking at the music, even if you don't read music, hopefully you can see that it just starts on one note, it just goes to the neighbor right below, and then right back up to the starting note. We call that a lower neighbor. It's this da-da-dum, and that little da-da-dum figure, lower neighbor, happens all over the place in this Bach concerto. And as it switches to the Stravinsky, listen and you'll hear that same little da-da-dum motive going on. So. And here's the Stravinsky. Especially listening to the strings. And right here, listen especially. That little moment sounds a lot like Bach's. And so otherwise in the concerto, what to expect? It's very similar to a Baroque, like a Bach concerto. There's 3 movements. Remember, you're not supposed to clap in between the movements. Incidentally, the Stravinsky, all three of the movements have that little lower neighbor figure that we talked about that it shares with the Bach. The tempo markings kind of give us the different movements. The first one is marked tempo giusto, meaning bright and angular. Well, I mean, it just means a fast tempo, but the sound of it is quite bright, angular, has those Stravinsky kind of rhythms that we heard. The second movement is typically slow. His was marked allegretto, which means it's kind of moderate. It's not too slow. It's very colorful. You can listen for some very interesting color combinations. We'll take a listen here. And the third one is marked con moto, which means with motion. We also hear a little bit more aggressive harmonic language in there, a little more dissonance, a little more bite to it. Let's just give you a taste of each one. We've heard some of the first movement. I'm going to skip further in. Stravinsky often has these kind of sharp edges and angular rhythms, and you hear that a little bit in there. Let's move to the second, so expect this one to be slower. Again, I'm going to skip into the middle a little bit further. You hear some of those unique colors as it has the ominous strings there and the different winds playing in different ranges. And on to the third movement, which a bit more aggressive in tone. Again, let's skip a little into it so you hear some more. And that's it for that one. Hopefully you come and enjoy the concert. The Dumbarton Oaks Concerto, one of my favorites. Enjoy.